Suma Gakire ni Wata
Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. What the fuck? What we got going on here? We're watching the craziest Japanese game show ever. It gets really bad. It gets really, really crazy. Not just like crazy, like, oh, this funny, this hilarious, whatever. It's like bad. It's really bad.
was the poorly dubbed Most Extreme Elimination Challenge on Fight
Oh my
TV in the
gosh.
2000s.
Imagine they just make AI game shows. We literally have AI brain rot and freaking Apolita cracking the fucking watermelon.
This performed so well that ABC tried to do an Americanized version of it called I Survived a Japanese Game Show in the 2000s, but it bombed. ABC tried once again in the 2010s to more success with the clearly Japanese-inspired Wipeout, which was even revived for a second run in 2021. But if you've seen a real Japanese game show, you know what's up. It's not the same. There's something
What the?
undeniable about the Japanese mindset and sensibility that gives them this edgy, not so concerned for their own safety spirit that would just never be able to exist in the West. And as these Japanese game shows over time slowly started to evolve into what is now known as
What?
reality TV, in the 1990s, there was one show in particular that had more spirit and more edge than any other show that had come before it, and most that would come after. One man's willingness to subject himself to a years-long bout of psychological torture not only created one of the most unique, groundbreaking, and avant-garde pieces of entertainment ever developed, but also transformed a then unknown comedian into a, which led to moments that were honest, hilarious, and real. I think this is mostly because Japanese and American culture are so different. In America, you can basically sue for anything, and it's very much like an individualistic culture. How can I better things for me and my family? How can I grow my business? Where in Japan, the mindset is definitely more geared towards a collective culture. How can I better the environment around me for everyone to benefit from? Which means when a producer like Tsuchiya, who's willing to break Japan's very rigid and stringent social norms, he has a real easy time bullying and manipulating the contestants because they're polite, malleable, and agreeable. Many shows were riding the wave of embarrassing Japanese people for laughs at the time, but none more famously than Susanoo Denpa Shonen. The basic theme of the show was to take people who wanted to be famous and drop them into insane challenges with no prior...
Hey, I'm a good friend, Ro. I gave you a bunch of heart hands and some other stuff you never noticed before.
To Do Not Proceed, Crazy Youth, which was a play on words.
But that's kind of interesting right here, where he kind of talks about America is very individualistic, where Japan is more like together, like they focus more on bettering each other.
Easy.
So that I assume he's kind of taking a liberty with this assumption, because I think it's a good point. He's like kind of like bullying the contestants and whatever. But I feel like that kind of has no bearing, because I feel like that happens in America anyway. Like that happens just as much.
Contestants because they're polite, malleable.
But I guess being polite and whatever. I don't know.
No prior knowledge of what the idea behind the rebranding from telling the youth to move onwards to warning them not to proceed was Tsuchiya's vision of taking the predecessor's formula.
So the director is kind of fucked up in the head. He doesn't care. He can get away with it without getting sued in Japan.
Nasumi, who had recently moved to Japan with the dream of becoming a famous entertainer, was a fan of Susanoo Denpa Shonen. More so, he was a fan of Tsuchiya. He looked up to him. In his words, he thought of him as a god, which I think is just a bit of a translation thing. Like, I don't think he actually thought he was a...
Okay. I have a story time.
He was able to take the human experience and boil it down to its core and truly capture...
I can appreciate a good fangirling or two, you know?
Looking for work at the time, signed up for what he thought was going to be a game show where contestants had to hitchhike across Africa. When he entered the audition on January 1st, 1998, he was told to go stand in a room filled with other contestants. Then Tsuchiya himself walked in. A box was wheeled in, and the contestants are told that to win, all they need is luck, foreshadowing the objective of the coming challenge. The contestants each pull a piece of paper from the box in a lottery, and Nasubi, by complete chance, would win and immediately be blindfolded and pulled from the room. They drove him to an undisclosed house, and he was placed in a room without any pretense to what was going on, signing a contract.
Truman Show vibes.
Down completely.
I've never watched a Truman Show.
Looked up to Tsuchiya and was a fan of Complied, which officially began the challenge. Inside the small studio apartment was a rack of magazines and a stack of envelopes. He would need to enter the magazine sweepstakes for him to procure everything he needed to survive. Food, clothes, entertainment, all the basic necessities would not be provided to him. You would have to win them from magazine sweepstakes. For my Gen Z...
Which is crazy, no? So hold on. Did they leave him food?
And pulled from the room. They drove him to an undisclosed house, and he was placed in a room without any pretense to what was going on or even signing a contract. They told him to strip down completely nude, and Nasubi, who looked up to Tsuchiya and was a fan of the show, complied, which...
That's like way too far. That's so taking advantage.
Challenge. Inside the small studio apartment was a rack of magazines and a stack of envelopes. He would need to enter into magazine sweepstakes for him to procure everything he needed to survive. Food, clothes, entertainment, all the basic necessities would not be provided to him.
That's crazy. They didn't even give him like food or water or anything? I mean, I'm sure they made it... Oh, okay, I'm gonna guess this because I know a little bit. I'm sure they made him enter some competitions for like or sweepstakes or whatever for like water or something, and then they probably just gave him food or water so he doesn't die or whatever. Which Spider-Man movies? All of them. Might as well tie them up.
Would have to win them from magazine sweepstakes. For my Gen Z viewers, back in the day, companies would often buy ad space in magazines and run sweepstakes. All you really had to do was send in your name and address to the company. Sometimes you have to write like an essay or something. For this example, let's say Pringles was running the sweepstakes and you'd won, they'd send you a case of their newest flavor of potato chip, Baja Blast, a new collaboration with Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew broke up with Doritos in this analogy because Doritos cheated on them with Dr. Pepper. But I digress. It's a way to build...
What? Does anyone get that?
...of their new product.
This is basically torture porn?
So if Nasubi wanted pants, for instance...
I wouldn't go that far.
...that actually had a sweepstake for pants, enter it.
But it does seem crazy.
He delivered before he...
And I slept. Allegedly. Thanks for asking.
For all of the prizes he'd win over time had to equal at least 1 million yen, which when you account for inflation in today's yen is about 1,300,000.
No, wait. I want to make a prediction that fuck it. Let's just watch.
And if you convert that into USD, it's around $8,300, which doesn't seem like a lot on paper, but keep in mind that if you win like a 3-pack of Cheetos flavored macaroni and cheese, that's only worth like $8, 1/1000th of your end goal. Just like Fish Tank, he had 2 cameras in the room, but instead of being live streamed as this was in the 1990s, the challenges would be edited down into a weekly format.
Don't make any bets.
8 to 10 minute segments.
Unless it's with you, I don't plan to. I would lose.
These ladies having fun with green screen technology being interspersed throughout. I'm just going to be straight with you because I actually wanted to include this. Those wacky Japanese ladies, the footage for them is very sparse.
Why is he naked? That's just what they chose.
You can't legally watch the show anywhere, but the show had been archived on archive.org. So I did manage to grab every moment of it and watch the experience on the show.
For that.
But it's only him in the house.
Basically got caught mentally scarring people, so I see where Mr. Beast got his ideas.
Green screen ladies here going forward.
Mr. Beast is much more tame than this. What's up, Indigo?
That the show probably wouldn't even air because he was naked. And you know how Japan is about blurring nudity. So
hey, wait, whoa, I missed the best part. Hold on. What are we talking about?
Even air because he was naked. And you know how Japan is about blurring nudity.
Why does this guy just show the craziest stuff? Barely censored. Kind of hot though. Anyway.
Entire filming of the show. Not only did Natsubi have little to no contact with the outside world, he also had no idea that the show was even live. Very Fish Tank-like. Try to keep this in mind as the show progresses. Another little game for the
He didn't know the show was live?
Of the show is about getting famous, very similar to Act 1 of Season 3 of Fish Tank. More items in his inventory. Well, a ballpoint pen, I should have mentioned that. A shower, though shampoo and soap had to be one. A radio, which he could
Wait.
envelopes to mail them, sneak in while he was sleeping and restock. Some postcards to write on, envelopes to mail them. He was given a few more items in his inventory. Well, a ballpoint pen, I should have mentioned that. A shower, though shampoo and soap had to be one. A radio, which he could use to enter sweepstakes at radio stations. A telephone, which could call out, but it was for emergencies only. A small gas stove, and that's it, like no pots and pans or anything.
Which could call out. So basically he could get phone calls, but he can only really call if it was an emergency. That makes it more weird. Like, hey buddy, we're just gonna film you naked for TV just for us. Not for TV just for us. There's so much I don't get, but one thing he didn't mention that the guy here is 23 and he really looked up to the director. So I guess the director basically just took full advantage.
A sink and a small table to write on.
It makes it very weird. Nothing about this is normal in the slightest. Nothing about this is normal in the slightest.
Nothing else. That guy lied. Obviously, he needed a little food, and so until he would start winning food...
What's Fish Tank? I have no idea, Tanya.
Sneak in and drop off little care packages.
I honestly don't know.
Accounts, all he was given was a very small amount of crackers to eat. Production would also take that time to change the tapes and the cameras, and then return to their production room, which was actually just the apartment beside his. The show would censor his genitals with an eggplant emoji, way before it became a goon or a hieroglyph, and that's pretty much it. Production would leave, he'd basically have no contact with the outside
Interesting, they kind of predicted that.
world or even production.
I wonder why they chose that.
Begins. He'd spend...
Oh, because his nickname was Nasubi. Nasubi is eggplant in Japanese.
Toiling away, submitting to hundreds of prizes within the first 2 months. Nasubi is a pretty wiry guy to begin with, and since crackers were his only source of sustenance, he really began to deteriorate physically. Whatever muscle mass he did have just completely withered away. Another item he was given, I don't know if I mentioned this one actually, was a diary. Sections from his diary would be read on air. They're used as like his inner monologue narrating events that he surpassed his goal of 1 million yen, to which Tsuchiya replied,
I earned 1 million yen? No.
Instead, he was given a mask and some headphones and was pulled outside without any explanation. Natsubi is having a very real moment, smelling fresh air for the first time since January. He, without explanation, is put into the back of a van that drives around and around for 2 hours. And then 5 hours, to the point where Natsubi falls asleep. Until finally,
they just hate this guy.
64 yen after spending 333 days.
I'm glad you're having fun this stream, Tanya.
Naked, with little to no...
Tell your friends.
Little to no human interaction, with no knowledge...
Hold on. Hold on. Wait, read the caption.
With no knowledge, he had become the Rizzler level famous. A man completely naked in a self-imposed solitary confinement, with the only thing to occupy his time was entering magazine sweepstakes to earn enough swag to survive. Production refrained from cluing him in on what happened and wait for him to fall asleep. Then, in the dead of night, like every time they ship him to a new location, they wake him up with party poppers, and at first doesn't even entertain the idea that he'd won. It's almost like the idea of going back to his normal everyday life has been stripped away and beaten out of him, because all he knows is living in the studio apartment. Eventually, they manage to get him to admit that he'd won, where he instantly appears like a giant weight has been lifted off of his shoulders. Tsuchiya rewards him with the same clothes he had walked in wearing on January 1st. He triumphantly in the apartment. The clothing was so unnatural to him now that it made his skin itchy, and he opted to go naked instead.
Act 3. Congratulations for reaching the goal.
Please, 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 do not skip to Asmongold reacts to TikTok being sold to Saudi Arabia. My favorite moment is still to come.
Let me give this guy a like and a comment.
The day after Nasubi's victory, Tsuchiya and the rest of production wanted to properly reward our protagonist for his resilience, and ironclad will. And it was also a way for them to film just a little more content before they wrap things up. So the first of 3 gifts he was given was a giant bowl of Tokyo's finest ramen. For gift number 2, they blindfolded him, brought him to an airport, sat him on a plane, and flew him to South Korea. You see, on day 13, Nasubi had written in his diary that his favorite food is yakiniku, aka Korean barbecue.
What's up, Lobo?
To Korea, the most authentic version of the dish possible.
Korean barbecue.
Final gift, they re-blindfolded him and took him to an amusement park, where he spent the entire day riding roller coasters. Later that day, they made Nasubi buy a giant jar of Korean kimchi. They would blindfold him one final time as they drive 5 hours to his final destination, a new room with magazines and a table and postcards. What happened, though, off camera, was Natsubi flat out said no. He had just spent 333 days in near complete isolation. By this point, his mental state was shot. He had done serious damage to himself. That much time spent in isolation sent him spiraling into a deep depression, considering many times throughout the past 333 days of taking his own life. This is like a dog that's been used and abused by his master, being forced to fight other dogs for his master's entertainment, who finally is fighting back. But Tsuchiya...
What the what is this clip?
The master's entertainment, who finally is fighting back. But Tsuchiya, the ultimate opportunist, knowing that if he just kept pressuring Nasubi, he'd be able to make some really good content at the cost of his talent's sanity. Tsuchiya told the rest of production to leave the room. To this day, no one knows what he said or how he was able to convince the visibly upset Nasubi to continue, but after 3 hours of negotiations, Nasubi agreed, kicking off a life in prizes Korea. The moment
Holy shit.
Tsuchiya left the room, his bond with Natsubi would eternally be shattered. The man our protagonist once viewed as a god had now become the devil.
Holy shit. 3 hours of negotiation. And that guy was like, no, no, no. Damn. This guy doesn't give a fuck. And that's Natsubi, so this is part of the documentary. So he's kind of like allowed out?
March of 1999, after winning various prizes, he won a giant box of bananas. These were worth 2,500 yen, bringing his total to 47,800 yen, surpassing his goal once again, winning the challenge. And this time, he was given a new secret goal of 57,300 yen, 9,500 more yen than he had already won. This would be enough to upgrade his economy class to a business class flight back to Japan, because production only wanted the best for Nasubi. Or at least that's how it was presented on the TV show. In reality, the devil himself, Tsuchiya, full on knowing what Natsubi's mental state was, since he was reading his diary, transcribing it, and then selling it to people and keeping the lion's share of the money. This was just a way for Tsuchiya to squeeze every last dollar possible out of the man, to push the boundaries to their limits, and cash out just before they break. Nasubi had begun suspecting something was up. He knew he should be at least very close to winning, but since he was kept in the dark, decided to push on. As the show rolls on, Nasubi wins some rare, expensive tea leaves worth 14,000 yen, immediately surpassing his goal, bringing him to a total of 61,800 yen. But this time, production moved the goalpost once more. His new goal, unbeknownst to him, is a first-class plane ride back to Japan.
Oh my gosh.
1,600 yen, meaning he needed to win another
High level ups.
800 yen. Continuing on into March, he'd win more random prizes until he wins a fox skin scarf, which he nicknames Bikao, which is valued at 12,000 yen, which brings his new total to 85,590 yen, shooting way past his goal and winning a life in prizes in Korea for the 3rd time, and winning the show for the 4th time. So production increased his goal from 81,600 yen to 944,440 yen.
Bro, I'm taking notes. I could get
Drop, and Natsubi is confronted for the first time with his adoring fans. After spending 433 days alone and dying
holy
inside,
shit, 433
Natsubi was
days.
so emotionally scarred from being gaslit by Tsuchiya that he didn't think the victory was real. He was confused, fully expecting some sort of sinister plot twist. The hosts of the show join him and try to convince him that he actually won the show.
ここ、どこか、わかる？
今どこわかる？
Eventually, everything sinks in, and Natsubi collapses with joy. He sat on the stage and watched a montage of all these moments he had no idea had stolen the hearts of millions. Remember, this was one of, if not the most popular show in Japan. In Natsubi's mind, he had become an overnight celebrity superstar, a best-selling author. Because just minutes ago, he got naked thinking he might need to spend another year inside for a show that might not even...
Holy.
He takes his bow and leaves the show, going back to a hotel where for the first time was allowed to watch the show that he was the star of. Which is all well and good, but the damage to Natsubi was done.
So this was real. This was actually real. There's actual real life consequences, and we're about to see that now.
Celebrity comedian, booking interviews and a slew of acting work, but inside, he was a wreck. As I mentioned before, he had to relearn how to wear clothes, how to talk to people, how to look at people. He had to remember how to make human connections. The ultimate goal of winning a life in prizes was for him to be a famous entertainer, but at what cost? To quote the man himself, "All I gained from a life of prizes was a skill to survive a life of prizes." But in a happy ending, Natsubi didn't just lay down and wallow in his sorrow. He decided to slowly piece his life back together. He began his acting career appearing in many movies and TV shows, most famously landing a recurring role as the Watchman in Carmen.
Editor Chris here. Just wanted to say I edited down this stream from about 2 hours to 20 minutes. So a lot of things were left out. But if you enjoyed this, let me know. Like, comment, and let me know. If you want to see the whole thing, I've linked it multiple times during the video, and I have it linked in the description as well as the end card here. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought this stream was really fun. My chat really loved it. So I plan to do more of these. So subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.